Le coup de projecteur de l'éclaireur, Pascal Clairot avec vous. Je reçois aujourd'hui le député européen allemand Michael von der Schulenburg. Michael von der Schulenburg a été élu en 2024 député européen sur la liste de l'Alliance Sarah Wagenknecht, le parti de gauche souverainiste allemand. Nous allons parler de la guerre en Ukraine, du possible réarmement de l'Europe et de l'Allemagne, ainsi que de la folie guerrière qui semble avoir saisi des dirigeants européens qui ont oublié ce qu'est la diplomatie. Michael von der Schulenburg, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I'd like to have your take on what happened yesterday in Paris, you know, the meeting of the coalition of the willing.
You know, Europe, or the European Union, and whatever, coalition of willing or whatever, it will be unable to do anything about these things. These are all big words, and we had already before a meeting in Paris and in London, and then 2 meetings in Brussels, and now this one again. You know, there will not be NATO troops on Ukrainian territory, even if we call them now peacekeeping troops. It will not happen because it would mean the Third World War. It is such a irresponsible way of thinking when Europe could get involved in the Ukraine conflict that it just blows my mind. But I think the Americans will prevent it.
What's your take also on the ReArm program, which I believe did change name, didn't it? It's not ReArm anymore because the Italians and the Spaniards thought it was a bit too aggressive.
Yeah, I don't even know the changed name, but it's something which is empty. I mean, they want to have 800 billion euros, but they don't have a penny for it. I mean, it's all hot air. I mean, they want to get 650 in form of additional debts that member states have to pay for, and another 150 which we want to create a new facility. Also, there's no money. So the whole thing is actually, again, like also this Paris meeting, it's basically empty. It's basically something which we try to take a stand and we make a lot of noise, but it will be empty.
So what you're saying is that they're doing all this to save face?
I think they do it because they have lost their heads. You know, for Europe, it is an embarrassing thing that happens now. This is a war on European territory, and we have nothing contributed to prevent the war. We have nothing contributed to support the Russian-Ukrainian peace initiative in Istanbul and end the war a month after it started. And we have never prepared any ceasefire or peace proposals. We refuse to speak to Russia. And how can you not speak to Russia if you want to have peace? So we have basically sidelined ourselves. And now suddenly the masters who actually are responsible for the war, the United States, changes stake. They don't think Ukraine is any more important. They think Russia is important for them, and they will drop the Ukraine. This is basically what happens now with the peace negotiations. And the European Union, in its wisdom, says, but we want to stick with the Ukraine, or let's say the rest of Ukraine. And this is, of course, a black hole. We will sink billions of dollars there, or euros there. It's unbelievable. I mean, we do all the things Europe is doing is just senseless. I find it really frightening. I've seen so many wars. I've seen such a behavior, not even in the Iran-Iraq war. I found people were far more rational when we negotiated peace there and things like this one. Here in the European Parliament, I'm flabbergasted, actually, what I hear.
Then what's the way out then?
The way out would be, of course, that we have to support the American peace initiative. There's no alternative to it. You know, we have lost the war. The war is lost to Ukraine, and it's lost to Europe. It's lost to NATO. I mean, we have thought it would be easy to defeat Russia. It has not been easy. The opposite is happening, and then we have to accept the realities. You know, in all politics, you have to accept realities if you want to change something. But even more so in wars. I mean, there's a reality, and the reality is that the Ukraine is close to collapse. So let's save what we can save, by making a ceasefire, by of course they will lose territory and all the rest of it. But we don't, we have just in Germany the coalition negotiations. Part of it is to say that they would support NATO membership of Ukraine. I mean, after 3 years of war, where the United States already said that they would never support membership of Ukraine in NATO in order to calm the waters. And there's this little Germany going down economically and making more debts than they ever had before. And they want now to change the situation and saying that Ukraine should become member of NATO. It is senseless. It is simply senseless.
But don't you think that all these people, I mean, that's the case in Germany, that's the case in France. Italians and Spaniards tend to be a bit more rational. But don't you think that all these people are basically hoping for what happened in 2020? That is, that Trump will do only 4 years and that everything will go back, quote unquote, to normal?
Yeah, I know that there are people here hope, but I think we shouldn't forget this whole initiative is at the beginning of Trump's presidency. Is at the beginning, and I'm sure that we will have a ceasefire. I'm pretty sure. I mean, in wars you can never really predict things. That we will have a ceasefire by Easter. It's a very important date this time because it's Easter. This Easter is in the Orthodox and the Western churches on the same day, enormously symbolic for ending a war. So I think that will happen, and we are out. We are out, and to hope to wait for another 4 years while our economy is going down, and we will end up with huge debts. Because I mean, there's not only the increase in military spending, we have also to save the Ukraine. We have to try to rebuild it. We have maybe there's an Ukrainian membership of the EU. All the things we will talk about. Possibly €1 trillion that the follow-up of this war will cost to the Europeans. And now we want to wait for 4 years to think that the whole thing changes. No, I would advise them not to. And I can tell you, America has taken a different stance, and this will not go back anymore. Also not with the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats' popularity now in the US is, I think, something like 25%. I mean, they will have to adjust to this one. There is something that will not return to what Europeans might think normal.
Okay, but wouldn't that mean then a significant change in political personnel throughout Europe and at the European institutions? Because these people will have systematically failed. They're dead. I mean, if that happens, basically they're all dead.
That is maybe a too strong word.
No, but I mean, dead, politically dead. I mean, not dead.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I mean, von der Leyen, Kaja Kallas, Macron.
Also Zelensky is politically dead. Mm-hmm. I mean, now the peace or Europeans' future will be negotiated between Putin and Trump. And we are completely out. The Europeans are not even being informed what happens in Riyadh and all the back channels negotiation, because there is always a lot of back channel negotiations. We are not even informed. I mean, we don't know who wants a European there. Nobody. I mean, this peace aggression is now supported by China. Look at the Security Council. Now suddenly China, Russia, and the United States vote together and we against. I mean, who do you think we are? Europe in the year 2050, according to the Price Waterhouse calculation, will only be 4.5% of the world population. 4.5% of the world population. And our share in the world economy will drop to 9%. If it all goes well, it might be even worse, because if we don't change our policy. So the European Union is not what they think they are. They are actually relatively small state associations, but they still behave, that applies also to your president, as if we are still the former colonial powers who sort of tell the rest of the world what they have to do and not to do. I mean, the EU has not even sent anybody to these meetings of BRICS countries because they consider them as enemies. We consider US now as enemy. We consider China as an enemy. And we consider Russia as an enemy. I mean, this bloody... I'm sorry for the language.
No, bloody. Go ahead.
This is 4.5% of the world population. And the thing is, we don't even have our own population behind these political elites. No, most people want to have a ceasefire. Most people want the war to end. Most people don't want these deaths. But I don't know what we are doing. We will have huge social tensions in Europe because somebody will have to pay this. I repeat again. We are just right here a counter proposal to the EU, which we want to present on Easter, and which we also translate in French, by the way. It's and which we try to calculate this a little bit, and of course it's very vague, but we're talking potentially about $1 trillion. Now, what is France going to pay for this one? It's already indebted. What is Italy paying for it? In Germany, the mood of our population is against debts because of our historic experiences. So we're going down the road, which we will have our own people against us.
But then again, I mean, let me ask you a question, a bit provocative one. To run a custom union and common policies, do we need the European Commission? Do we need the European Court of Justice? Do we even need the European Parliament? It's a bit provocative, but you see where I'm going at.
I tell you, we only need the UN Parliament to pay me salary. I tell you, this is I'm shocked. I'm shocked what I see. I mean, the European Union, when you come here to this main square, it's always these blue, transparent, democracy in action and, democracy here, democracy there. I mean, it's all, I grew up in East Germany. It reminds me very much of East Germany. We had this, and only then they were red, these banners. I mean, one of the most undemocratic things, which has a budget of, what is it, $1 billion or more a year, I mean, huge financial things, is the most undemocratic thing we have in Europe. I mean, what is democratic about it? And, who elects whom, who makes these decisions? I mean, this is, the EU will not be able to continue like this one. And I think it's the Ukrainian war which will bring this to the opening. And what I'm very pro-Europe, but not this type of Europe, and that we will have to change, and we have to change because reality will catch up with us. It's not because of any big thinker, because we don't have big thinkers anymore, and we don't have the great personalities we used to have in Europe, and it's really, really sad. But reality will catch up with us, and we will have problems. We will have huge problems. Because of mainly because of our Ukraine policy.
The COVID also was there first. I believe that was the first nail in the coffin. The COVID.
Yeah, Pascal. When I come here, I sit there up in the parliament, and I see that the 500 of the 750 always vote for war and continuing a war. And I think to myself, that's lovely. I mean, these people don't have a son in the war, no daughter that is raped. No house or apartment is destroyed. They have a warm apartment, a shower in the morning, take coffee and things like this one, and then they come here and vote for war. I such a perverse thing. I've not even, I've been to, by my background. No, I've been 34 years in wars. We always think that we are the pinnacle of civilization. I mean, I really ask myself, and I'm a conservative at heart. No, I ask myself, is this what Europe has become? If you hear the language in the parliament, if I hear the resolutions, that in none of the resolutions, not in the white paper and all the other things, diplomacy as a word is even mentioned. In a continent, Europe, that knew so many wars, that had find so many solutions, in which diplomacy has always played a huge role because of our many states. And here we do as if war is the only solution to our problems. And then we lose the war.
Yeah, and these people don't have an idea what war, the idea of what war is and what it actually.
Yeah, and I've seen wars, Pascal. I tell you, I've seen wars, and I tell you, there is no good war. There is no heroes in the war. I mean, when you see, the people coming back there, and I've seen these wars. I've been in them, and it is it's for me heartbreaking. I find my job here in the parliament more difficult than any assignments to war countries. because of the attitudes the Europeans or the European elite has taken towards war, towards rearmament, as if this is all nothing. And highly paid people, the Europeans have just increased their salary, so they don't even feel the inflation. And, also the social irresponsibility which comes with this. I mean, it's unbelievable, man. Who's going to pay for this? It's a small income earner. It's those people who get pensions. They will have to pay for it in form of inflation, in form of losing jobs, deindustrialization, and all the rest of it. And we seem to be completely ignoring this at the political level.
Is it the same thing in Germany? Because we've seen that Friedrich Merz, which I already dubbed Merzkel, sorry, I couldn't help myself, obviously managed to pass a constitutional law that will enable Germany to increase its debt ceiling. And that was done between two parliaments. Is that really constitutional? Will this happen? Is the German people for it?
I mean, the Constitutional Court has said it's legitimate. It's right. They can do it, but is it also legitimate? I don't think it is. I mean, there's what we risk here is a decline, which we had already before, but a further decline in the belief of a democratic state or a state in general, in political parties and so on. This will have huge costs in the long term. It is Merz, unfortunately. I think it's. I mean, he is intellectually a very questionable person.
He's an accountant. He's a banker.
No, he's not even a banker. He was. I mean, BlackRock banking. It's not a banking institution. I mean, and then he changes things, and he will have problems in his own party if the government ever forms, which is not all that sure. I think we will, it will be unstable. So I think also Germany, it's a center, always is considered the sort of the strong party who keeps the whole thing together, is now going to break over all this. It will really be. Now, the other thing, which is a result of this one, that we see the increase of right-wing parties, and you know that my heart is more on the left, also because of the UN. I'm in the charter, so you can't belong to a right-wing party, and but they are the winners. They are the winners. They are the winners. I mean, in Austria, in Germany, in your country. I mean, in Italy, and look what happens in the UK. Now, the two main parties, Liberal, the Labour and I've just read an article, Labour and on the Conservatives, they're almost dissolving as parties. I mean, the whole structure of party structure is starting to collapse in Europe. I mean, look at France. You have so many parties I don't even know their names anymore, and or Italy, or now in Germany too. So in my wife is Dutch. I mean, I think they have 18 parties in the parliament or something. I mean, we see here not only an economic decline, but we see also a political disintegration. And that is triggered. It was there before, but it has been speeded up by this war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. And what's the... so do you mean that no matter what, there will be political instability in Germany for the time to come? Well, at least an instability that we have not seen in Germany for a long time ago.
Yeah, it would be very dangerous for me to predict such a thing, because it's things I don't want to happen. No? But I mean, but there will be reactions to the whole thing, and the fear is, of course, that in Germany we need a long time to react to the whole thing. And the real problem, as I said to you, is that these people will vote for people which might make things even worse. And because they think they have the quick solution. We had this before, so I'm very worried about this. It's probably more likely this one to happen than having huge strikes and things like this one. This is, I think, more a French sort of trait. We have always tried to find a leader who can pull us off through other things. Didn't have a very good hand for this, actually, in history, no? If I remember.
Well, each people has its fault. Now, if that's okay, we could shift to the Middle East, where also Europeans, or at least Europe, seems to be totally sidelined by what's going on, which mainly is the negotiation between the U.S., Hamas, and on one hand, and Iran also on the other hand, which are being facilitated by Saudi Arabia. What's your take on that?
It's being German. I mean, I've been for the UN in so many countries all over the world in wars, but I always refuse to have anything to do with the Israeli conflict because of my nationality, and I felt that this would not be a good thing. So I have not such a good take on it. But my feeling is, knowing a little bit about wars and what the long-term effects is, because wars in the end you will not win militarily, because you will have to have a political solution in the end if you want to have a stable environment, whether you have especially when you win something. So I would say that Israel is in great trouble, and that this continued war has enormous cost for them. They have not been able to eliminate Hamas. In fact, they now negotiate with Hamas, and I think they have lost the war. They have lost the war, and that's for good. And a great pity, because Germans, we usually have a great sympathy because of our past with the Jewish state. But I think that they will not be able to negotiate anything anymore that would provide them stability, and that's bad for a state. It's bad for a state,
and it's bad for the whole region, basically, because it.
Yeah. But I'm thinking about Israel.
The total strategic failure, basically.
The pictures which went around the world, and of this destruction, of the shooting of civilians, and whether you want to use a stronger word or not, for the general public, that doesn't really mean anything. But what they see there is so awful, so incredibly awful. And one-sided on what happens there. I think this will not be forgotten, and this will have an impact also on those people who live outside. Unfortunately, and we try now in Germany to outrule by law anti-Semitism, whatever that is, of course. But I think you can't do this by law. Somehow you win wars by winning hearts and things like this one. And I don't think Israel is doing this.
And what about what's going on in the Republic Democratic of Congo? Because I believe you have some experience in Africa too.
No, but I haven't gone so far. But Sierra Leone and Somalia, yeah. No, yeah. I wouldn't be very qualified to speak about these things. No, it is of course no, I wouldn't be very qualified for this now. Mm-hmm.
What about Sudan?
Yeah, Sudan, we have divided it. We wanted to divide it. I'm sorry.
The Americans did it. The Americans created South Sudan.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Like we created the situation in Syria. I mean, before Trump. I mean, a week before Trump, the deep state in the United States brought a terrorist to become president of Syria, a country which has so many different religions in it. A Sunni terrorist. I remember because I was in Iraq, and what happened in Syria at the time was very important, and the Nusra Front and all these things were very much known to us because they had repercussions on Iraq. I mean, we considered them as the worst of the whole thing. I remember we have seen videos of women being executed and things like this one. I mean, for infidelity or other things. So now we have given them the means to run over the other government. I mean, it's not that I'm particularly fond of Assad, but I think we have created a situation which makes it even worse. And now the European Union. I mean,
they just gave 2.75 billion, didn't they?
I don't know if there's so much, but we gave money. We are giving money to them.
Kana has promised over
resolution-
2 billion, I believe. I mean, she went there and she promised over 2 billion. So did the Belgian commissioner. What's her name again? The Belgian commissioner. She promised over 2 billion. I mean, to
That
Syria.
was a beautiful one, yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I don't think that will come. This I actually don't know. But, there was a resolution in the European Parliament where all these murders were not condemned. I mean, amazing. And now happens something that Russia and the United States call for a meeting in the Security Council. And they voted for a resolution which condemns it. I mean, if I spoke about 1 year like this one, I would have probably jumped out of the window. But I have to say, I mean, what Trump does, and I surely don't condone all the things, but at least in this way, I mean, he has saved us. He has saved us from European stability, including your president.
He may be the worst of them all.
Yeah, but what doesn't make him worse that all the things he does is show he has no influence on things. He has not, and so he plays Napoleon, but he is not a Napoleon. This is the issue. When Europe could do something like in 2008 to prevent a quick membership to NATO, it was France and Germany. When we did something in Minsk, it was France and Germany. When we opposed the Iraq war, it was France and Germany. And this is lost. I strongly believe that we need a leadership in Europe, and that must be France and Germany. And I thought when the British left the European Union, that the chance for this core element in the whole thing would actually become stronger. But the opposite happened. And I don't think that France and Germany talk much with each other anymore, and at least not since. And I think it's a great loss. And I'm very fond of France and this one. And also when I go to Strasbourg, I'm very happy what I see in Strasbourg. For me, it is a symbol also these streets which have the German, French names now, and we don't deny our common history there anymore. And I think that's perfect. I care where the border is, and I like this. And I think actually Strasbourg as part of France is maybe more interesting than it would be under German control. But so I'm very pleased with this one. But in the global politics, this doesn't play anymore, unfortunately.
The British functions was to always play each other, France against Germany, which meant French and Germany had to coordinate. I believe that's also that too. But yeah, no, there's no. Well, the problem of Macron is that he does not. He's coming from nowhere. He does not understand the world. No. He does not speak any. He had absolutely no international, experience before he was elected.
He is too much in love with himself. That's very bad in politics.
That's true. That's true. So where do you think we're heading? What about NATO? Is NATO also on the way down?
Yeah, the EU and NATO are. You say if they are dead is always a strong word, but I think they are badly injured. There's an interesting picture of the meeting in London. They on the stairs, the typical picture where they all sort of stand. And you will see in this picture that Rutte, my mom is Dutch, Rutte stands outside. He doesn't really, as if he doesn't belong to this group. And that indicates that, of course, Rutte's salary is mostly paid by the Americans. So you see already how, in what difficult situation is. Now, Rutte said recently that one should normalize relations with Russia. Now, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, he said, no, that will take a long time because he gets, of course, pressure from the European countries. So, but you see already NATO being, I think NATO should have been dissolved in the end of the Cold War. And we should have had another things as we have agreed in the Charter of Paris. The Charter of Paris is a wonderful document. I think still wonderful document for how we should arrange security within Europe. We are such a small continent with so many states. We need common security arrangements, and that today this is for the EU or for the Western European countries far more important than it is for Russia, because Russia has now orientated itself towards China, India, and the BRICS states, and we have to have it. But I don't see any possibility in the near future that we would negotiate a real peace, and not only the ceasefire the Americans do, a real peace, because that's what require the Europeans, and they are not ready for it.
Or it would need to go through the OSCE, which is, I believe, an organization that has been not considered enough.
You see, Pascal, the OSCE is basically finished. I worked there also for 4 years, and it's they have done wonderful things. At the time, Europe was divided into two. I mean, it was, of course, the final act of Helsinki, hugely important for making, in the end, all the positive changes in Europe. And then, of course, the Charter of Paris. These are wonderful documents, but they wouldn't be able to do it anymore. And the reason is that in the meantime, 80% of their memberships are members of NATO. That means the OSCE is blocked. And that was also the result in the monitoring mission, which I know the boss who was for many years a boss very well, a Turk. And there was of this, because most of those observers, or I don't know what they call them, in these monitoring missions in Donbass and things like this one, were of course officers from NATO countries, almost entirely. And this has of course impacted. That's why we never got a full report of what happened when Ukraine attacked the Donbass in February, shortly before Russia invaded Ukraine. We never see a report. We know they say that as an increase.
But they do exist. I mean, they do exist. I mean, I've read some reports of OSCE monitors that definitely were speaking about artillery ramp up and troops being gathered.
This one, but they didn't say. But they did never say properly what it was. And they never said, they said you have the statistics that it increased, but to my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong, but they didn't, and they are not able to do it. And I mean, it's now almost a NATO subsidiary, and they will not play a role also in monitoring the ceasefire in Ukraine or anything like this one. This is not possible. There will be very little monitoring on the ceasefire, I think.
What is your feeling about Germany rearming? Well, if that is possible, because I'm thinking of the Article 3 and 4 of the Moscow Treaty.
And it looks now from what we know from the coalition, it's not full agreement, but from the documents that Germany thinks seriously about rearming. If this money which is foreseen for this one really comes, then Germany would, at least financially, they might not have the people for this one, but financially become the largest army on the European continent. If all this money is put into their Bundeswehr, it will be larger than Russia. And I cannot imagine, maybe now we are sort of look at this war, but in the long term, that other European countries, including France, would like this very much. I mean, we had this before, no? We had it twice before that the German armies became the strongest in Europe, and I'm deadly against it. I can only tell you this, and because with this comes in all this feeling that of leadership and things like this. When you see already in the European Union, I mean, the head is von der Leyen is German, the whole advisory team is German around her. The head of the largest party grouping is a German, Weber. The head of the Foreign Relations Committee, very important nowadays, is a German, and the head of the Security Committee is also a German. And so all the things about the war is now controlled by Germans, and I think that's very bad. I think that it's very bad. We will have a backlash on this one in other countries. I can assure you that will all come when everybody's asked to pay up for the war, because most countries will not have the money.
But then again, I mean, Germany, I mean, I did mention the Moscow Treaty because that's what paved the way for the reunification of
You mean
Germany.
two plus four, yeah?
Yeah, 2+4, yeah.
Yeah.
So you have Article 3, Article 4 that forbids basically Germany from rearming. I mean, that sets, as far as I recall, a limitation of 370,000 men for the Bundeswehr.
That's right. I mean, the two very interesting in 2016, because I was invited to it. In the end, they did not publish my article, of course, and I never got a reply anymore. There was a meeting about a white book they had written under von der Leyen, by the way, about the future security policy, and I don't know, I get all these bloody telephone calls. Security policy and the future of the Bundeswehr. And the interesting thing is, in this document, the UN Charter is not mentioned anymore. And the other thing, of which was not a single word in 2016, was 2.4, the 2+4 agreement. Not a word. Not a word. I tell you this one. And I can send you an article I wrote. An article which my contribution to their people. They never responded to it. They never published it as part of the working things and things like this one. Unbelievable. I mean, that was a time when Germany thought they had to play a bigger role in the world and they wanted to become permanent member of the Security Council. Hopefully, God gracious, it will never happen. And it is something. When you see
they're nuts. They're completely. These people are crazy. Without 2+4, there wouldn't be any European Union. Let's face it. I mean, without 2+4, with currently with the war in Ukraine, we could just basically go back to building the wall. I mean, let's face it. These people are nuts.
Nuts. I tell you this one. I cannot understand the rationale behind this. I don't understand it. As if we have nothing learned from our history. I mean,
they don't even know the treaties. They don't even know basically what legal documents.
2.4 was adopted by the Security Council, which makes it the status of international law.
Yes,
it is an international law-abiding agreement. That's it's placed in this category at the United Nations, which keeps this track of these things. Yeah, this is not just an agreement among states. It's more. And in 1990, when we decided to bomb Serbia, I mean, Germany participated in the bombing. Actually, it was a breach of the. And nobody said anything because the West didn't want to say anything because at the time it was very suitable because Germany pays them for the war and participates, and Russia was too weak. I mean, we betrayed the Russians terribly on this whole thing. And Kaspar, don't forget all the one thing we're talking about Ukraine. You know that I have relatives who were killed by the Nazis because of this one, no? And that's why I'm going also on 9 May to Moscow. No? I tell you this afterwards. The First and the Second World War was about Ukraine also, at least in the East. It was about the control of Ukraine. It was about weakening Russia by taking this part and the access, and then further to get access to the oil in Baku and sort of thing. This was the war, and that's also why we lost the First and Second World War. I mean, when we had this so-called peace agreement, which was afterwards abolished in Versailles from Brest-Litovsk, we broke the ceasefire agreement and marched into Ukraine because we wanted in Kiev a government that is suitable to us. Luckily, the Germans lost the war. I'm not for Germany winning any wars, and so we luckily it was not. In the Second World, the same thing. I mean, there was a whole Bandera, all these things that is.
Oh yes. Well, he was assassinated in München. I mean, in 1952, where he was protected by Hannah Gellen.
He protected somebody who was responsible for 100,000 Jews and Polish to be killed. We protected this guy
by Hannah Gellen, himself protected by the Americans.
Yeah,
because that was the Bundesnachrichtendienst who grabbed
yeah,
Bandera.
Bundesnachrichtendienst. Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, we do not much else today, and we're losing it again.
You know, let me tell you something funny. François Hollande and Angela Merkel made a deal whereby Germany was supposed to do the intelligence legwork in Ukraine, against which we French had to do the intelligence legwork in Africa. Isn't that funny?
I didn't know about this. I see.
Isn't that funny? I mean, so now, if we consider how these two people acted upon the Minsk agreement, you know.
Yeah, but also how you see how deep this colonial mentality is still in Europe. How deep we are.
It is. Well, at least in the elites.
I mean, in the elite, of course, the main people in the, well, I don't think so, but at all. But among the elites, I mean, if von der Leyen, a woman I really detest, I mean, with all my heart, comes to the European Parliament and puts the finger in the air and threatens third countries if they don't participate in our sanctions, they would be sanctioned themselves. And she ignores that we have now a BRICS who is actually 6 times larger than the European Union economically, I mean, and population-wise anyway. I mean, it is unbelievable. We still think we are calling the shots. And now we criticize all the United States. I mean, I think, we are really committing suicide.
No, that's really the case. Well, I'm wondering that's maybe because our ancestors were slave traders in the U.S. And that comes from that much compare. They were, and that comes from it. Anyway, yeah. Well, the situation is not. It's pretty daunting. Anyway,
let me just finish. I have here put 3 questions because I put this yesterday also in the Parliament. Europe says always Russia started the war and all the rest of it. I see it a bit different.
No, it's not true.
I see it very differently. But I was also asked in things, have you been justified to provide weapons to Ukraine because it was attacked and all everybody else sort of, how this is, or of course the poor Ukraine, nasty Russians and things. But you see, in Europe, the European Union has to ask itself 3 questions. Why has Europe not engaged in negotiating with Russia to prevent the war in Ukraine? We all knew that Russia would do something. We all knew, but we kept quiet. We didn't say anything. We could have negotiated. Diplomacy was made to negotiate mainly security concerns among states. This is what diplomacy was always about. I mean, it wasn't about cocktails. That was the core. And we didn't negotiate. We could have prevented this war. This is the first question. The second question is, why has the European Union not support the Russian-Ukrainian peace talks in Istanbul? I was quite involved in this one. The 10 points, or they call it the 10 proposals, which was proposed by the Ukraine, was a brilliant move to solve the war. In this agreement, Ukraine would not have given up 1 square meter of Ukrainian territory against the promise of Russia, against the promise not to be part of NATO. And we undermined it. I mean, UK and America undermined it. Nobody in the European Union said anything. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing is, it is 3 years of war. Why have we never made any proposal for a ceasefire or for any peace negotiations? Why we have constantly, until today, refused to talk also to Russia? Because in the war, it is what it is. You have to talk to an enemy. And to say that we don't talk to them because an enemy is just baloney, and the Europeans with all their wars should know that. Why have we, on these 3 questions, why do we have to say in all the 3 questions Europe has failed? And because of this one, Europe is doomed. I mean, I really think I don't think it's dead or something, but it's doomed. We are really doomed, and we will have a great, terrible future because we have basically given up on diplomacy. Yeah, I'm often asked if now we are, in our newspaper it says, "Oh, it goes wrong because the Russians play hardball and blah 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 blah." I can only tell you because I've seen a number of negotiations, including big ones like Iran-Iraq war. What happened there sounds to me extremely professional. You cannot only push a button saying tomorrow nobody shoots anymore. You have to clarify a number of things. And what they clarify there presently, borders, NATO membership, shipping rights in the Black Sea, it's absolutely normal. And I think it is actually a sign that they are serious about a ceasefire or peace agreement. It will be a ceasefire plus peace agreements will not. But that they are serious about this and how the the Trump administration handles it. We always think that this guy is mad. But no, he's not at all. Not at all. It is, Pascal, I tell you, it's one of the most professional negotiations, I mean, from a distance, of course, that I can observe. And I tell you a little bit I know about this. I know about it, who to contact, when and how, and things like this one, what issues to discuss, when to take things back and start new. This is very, very professional. And therefore, I think we will have a ceasefire. We will have a ceasefire plus. It will change a lot in Europe, not in the favor of European Union, but we have managed to be outside. And but it's good because people don't die anymore for nothing, because I've seen people dying. It is a terrible thing, these young people, and that has to stop. And then, of course, we are now also saved the risk that this turns into a nuclear war. I mean, we Europeans should be enormously grateful to Trump that I say that as a left-winger.
Oh, yes. And even worse than that, because obviously what the Russians, the Chinese and Americans are now discussing is rebuilding mutual security that was completely destroyed by the neocons in 2002. I mean, wow, mutual security when it comes to nuclear weapons. What a good idea.
Pascal, I get more and more proposals, especially from Germans, that Europe needs a nuclear arm.
Oh, so did you?
Well, I've said the other day in the parliament, I only get this 1 minute and always screamed down. I said, in what world is this parliament living? In what world are you living? And it's so fixed, this whole thing. So anyway, it's enormously interesting time, but let me just say in the end 2 things, if you don't mind, no, because I like this contact with France, which I find very difficult. For instance, we have a peace group. There is not a single French person in it, and not because we don't try. We have a peace group which is very active. No, we have Sachs invited. We have the Ukrainian also invited for a panel discussion about their security and blah blah blah. So I have now a good relation with the Ukrainian ambassador. Before I was an enemy number 1, but now he invited me to him over and spoke 1.5 hours. We spoke about, and I have a different view of him, but he respects me. And so now anyway, we plan 2 things. We plan to go to Moscow as a group and making there a peace declaration. And possibly if there is a peace in Ukraine, we would also go to Kiev. This is very important. We take about 10 parliamentarians with me. And that's the one thing. The other thing is that we preparing for Easter eine Denkschrift, in which we oppose the White Book on the defense of Europe. We say that Europe will only survive if we find back that we are a peace project and not a war project. And I'm writing on it now, and maybe I can send all these things to you. We will, by the way, take also journalists with us to Moscow. And because now I'm quite known here, and we do this, and this will be very, very symbolic, and you will see the majority of the MAP members of Parliament who come with me are from Eastern Europe. Unfortunately, not a single French I could get for this. I mean, I'm absolutely flabbergasted.
Michael von der Schulenburg, thank you very much.